All right, guys, so I'm about to walk you through the secret, actual reason why Trump did what he did in Venezuela. Waged an illegal war, a regime change operation, obviously interested in the natural resources, obviously interested in getting a tremendous amount of wealth for the billionaire class that got him elected in this country. But let me walk through this for you guys and give you the specifics, because there's a lot of interesting secret parts of this that are coming to light. So first, let's start with this. Let me give you the overall breakdown as to what exactly went down. As you all know, they went in there and basically kidnapped or abducted President Maduro. They brought him to the United States. They're talking about how he's going to stand trial. Right off the jump here, let me just say that's very weird because, by that logic, does China have the right to kidnap a U.S. president and try them in their system? It really makes a mockery of the international law system. And also, simply put, there's not enough evidence to convict him of anything. The indictment, I read through some of the indictment, it's a total fucking joke. So if what happens is not, if it's a show trial, then maybe they'll actually, convict him or whatever. But if they actually give a shit about the law and follow the law, he's going to get off. And then what happens? What are you going to put him back as president of Venezuela? Of course they're not going to do that. But it just goes to show you we're in uncharted waters here, man. This is sort of crazy. Okay? But the crazier part is, what's their actual plan? You kidnap the president, and then what? So, of course, there's this woman, Maria Corina Machado, who's the opposition leader, who has been going around, basically, she begged Netanyahu to overthrow Maduro for her. She got the Nobel Peace Prize and then dedicated it to Trump. There's been a lot of weird stuff around. She's openly telling U.S. oil companies, I'm going to make you wealthy. By the way, 91% of Venezuelans disapprove of her. She's not popular, has zero mandate whatsoever. Very weird. Reminds me of Juan Guaido in the first term. This guy that Trump just pretended was president of Venezuela. Republicans pretended was president of Venezuela. He wasn't. But they brought him to UN events and NATO events and acted. But anyway, that all imploded because the coup attempt failed in the first term. Okay, so then, as I said, well, what's the plan then? If you're not going to install this puppet leader, now you kidnapped Maduro. Well, who's the acting person in control of Venezuela? Well, it would be the VP. Having said all that, let me walk you through this. Daniel DePetris is a syndicated foreign affairs columnist for the Chicago Tribune, and he has a great thread on this. So he says the following. Compared to Maduro's capture, which was short and sharp, Trump's day-after plan for Venezuela is bumbling and confusing. Rubio's TV hits didn't clear anything up, which suggests two things. Number one, the administration is keeping its cards close, or number two, it's still working on it. As far as I can see, the Trump administration is choosing to be a bit pragmatic. Work with somebody within the existing Venezuelan system rather than place your chips on Machado, who never really had a post-Maduro plan either and would likely be rejected by the Venezuelan army anyway. That's an important point. So not only does she not have the mandate of the people, there's no way the army would submit to her being the leader. So that could, make the country go to civil war effectively. All right, more. That's probably the right call. Installing Machado and Gonzalez would require the U.S. to overthrow the entire Chavismo system, which would require an extreme monetary commitment with extensive manpower over an undefined time frame and with the possibility of violence. Whether this play will work, I couldn't tell you. The U.S. is attempting to transform Venezuela into a pro-U.S. petrostate, working with the very same people who not only vomit at this scenario, but have sustained Chavismo for 2 decades. That's a pretty heavy lift to pull off. The Trump administration is giving Delcy Rodriguez a chance to prove her worth. It sounds to me that Delcy Rodriguez, by the way, is the VP who's now the acting president there. It sounds to me that if she doesn't meet Trump's expectations, the pressure meter will go up again, up to and including the use of military force. We're basically trying to coerce an adversary into becoming a proxy, which is so, that's insane. That's insane. You could have just, treated them as an equal, made a good deal with them to pay for their oil, right? But instead, it's we're going to bully you, we're going to overthrow your president, we're going to coerce you, we're going to extort you, we're going to rob you. You can't build a lasting relationship on that. All right, they continue. And finally, all of this is about power and geopolitics, not democracy and human rights. Trump's strategy for a post-Maduro Venezuela, as best I can tell, ditch democratic niceties for the time being and coerce Venezuela into submitting to U.S. policy demands or else. The Trump corollary in action. So here's one of the many problems with this theory. So the VP, Delcy Rodriguez, by all accounts, she's very similar to Maduro and very similar to Hugo Chavez. She's a true believer in the revolution, right? She, it's part and parcel of the fact that Maduro trusted her, made her VP. So, like, you replaced Maduro with Maduro. And now you're just like, I don't know, maybe. And what Trump said is, she'll meet a way worse than Maduro, maybe, if she doesn't play ball. So, in other words, if you don't let U.S. oil companies and U.S. billionaires extract your natural resources and profit off of it, then we're going to murder you. That's basically what he's saying. So incredible, incredible stuff. Now let me give you some more. So this is a piece in Sky News. And Sky News explains how at the core of what's going on here is the oil. It's about the oil. Now you hear a lot of people in the U.S. go, well, we already have enough oil. We don't need their oil. So this has nothing to do with oil. This is what you'll hear from neocons who are playing hide the ball, imperialists who are playing hide the ball, or people who don't know any better and are convinced by, propaganda. But the bottom line is, the kind of oil we have here, we have, shale natural gas is what we have here, that we get it through fracking. We don't have the heavy crude oil. Now, heavy crude oil, you need that kind of oil to make oil for jet fuel, to make asphalt, for example. That's where you use it. And so we can't get that out of the kind of gas we have here, okay? And the other thing is, we have a whole bunch of these refineries in this country that process this sort of heavy crude oil, right? And if we don't get more of it, those refineries go under, and we need to spend like billions of dollars to refit those to work with shale, for example. And so we want to keep feeding these refineries, and so this is one of the reasons why they want to take the oil from Venezuela. Now we get most of our heavy crude from Canada, but the largest oil reserve in the world is in Venezuela. So this absolutely has to do with the oil. Sky News does not mince words on that point. Let's watch some of this here.
Here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. We'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast. And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline and all of the other different products. But here's where things get interesting. And remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now. Shale oil tends to be light stuff. And actually that's kind of going back 10 years. Look at where we are now. Look at those bars. In the last few years, the amount of light oil being produced in the US has gone up and up and up, and the amount of kind of heavy stuff has gone down. But back to those refineries. They need to be fed. If America's going to have gasoline, it needs to feed those refineries with heavy oil. So if you look at the kind of imports coming into America, in recent years, even though America is producing so much oil, more oil than it ever produced before, it still needs to suck in loads of oil from overseas. And the type of oil we're talking about, it used to be, it's mostly heavy crude. It used to be only 12%. So only 12% of imports were heavy, gloopy crude. Now, it's about 70%. So 70% of the oil coming into America, which it needs to basically keep its economy going, is heavy crude. And where does heavy crude come from? Well, here are some of the big countries where you find most of it. It's Canada and Venezuela. There's one other I'll come to in a second, which we'll come back to. But it's Canada and it's Venezuela where you get most of this heavy crude oil, which is why, back to think about where those refineries are, they're mostly set up you've got some in the north there to get heavy oil coming out of Canada, and you've got some around the kind of Louisiana and elsewhere and Texas to get that heavy oil that comes in from Venezuela. That was kind of the way they were set up. And it's really expensive to rebuild these things. You can't just chuck out a refinery very easily overnight. Some came from Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico as well, and that's pretty heavy too. So that's the picture in America. And the upshot is, even though America's producing more and more oil, the imports, this is showing you imports of oil into America, are still really high. And if you break down those imports by the country that stuff is coming from, well, there's Venezuela, and it used to be a decent slug, actually more coming from Venezuela just about than from Canada, just at the turn of the millennium. But now look at what's happened since. Right now, Canada has gone from 15% of all of the US imports of oil to 61%. 61%, and Venezuela is basically next to nothing. But here's what's tantalizing, and here's the reason I think that a lot of people are looking towards Venezuela and thinking, well, there's more to this than just drugs. Look at total oil reserves around the world. The higher these bars are, the more oil there is in the ground, so that hasn't yet been taken out of the ground. So there you've got Saudi, Iran, Iraq, all of the usual suspects. But the biggest of all, and this is according to various different sources, the biggest of all is Venezuela. And what's that oil? It's the heavy, tarry stuff that you might well want to put into those American refineries. And there is really only one other place in the world that has a kind of serious amount of heavy oil other than Canada and Venezuela. And lo and behold, guess where that is? It's Russia. All of which is to say, it matters what kind of oil America needs. It's worth just delving into these kind of nuances because that helps you understand a little bit more about the backstory of geopolitics.
So this is exactly right. The other thing is, this is probably the majority piece of the picture, but there's another piece which is also super important, which I'm going to get to in a little bit. But on this oil point, look at this. So Judd Legum of Popular Information, he wrote a piece here on a Trump-supporting billionaire named Paul Singer. He's an uber-Zionist and a MAGA supporter, okay? He recently got his hands on Citgo, the oil company, and stands to profit significantly from Trump's Venezuela invasion after donating to Trump's campaign. Okay, Citgo used to be under the Venezuelan state oil company. Then, a court in the U.S. forced the sale. Trump let Paul Singer get it. Paul Singer, ultra-Zionist, MAGA supporter. Trump had the oil companies. He asked them for $1 billion to donate to his campaign in 2024. And he said, I'll make it worth your while. I'll pay you back for it. Now, here he is, doing an illegal regime change in Venezuela, openly talking about to steal the oil. So, Joe Legum says, Venezuela raid enriches MAGA billionaire. The ouster of Maduro is a financial windfall for a prominent Trump-supporting billionaire investor, Paul Singer. So, they need to invest, honestly, hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars to upgrade the oil infrastructure in Venezuela to get more barrels of oil out of the ground per day. It requires a massive investment. Here's Trump doing the dirty work to bring in Paul Singer, Zionist billionaire, to then upgrade all the infrastructure to extract the oil and make a killing off of it, quite literally. Just absolutely insane, the ties to a specific Zionist MAGA billionaire and how much money they stand to profit off of this. But I'm still not done. So the final thing that pushed Trump over the edge, where he was like, fuck it, we're going all the way. The New York Times reports that Maduro's dancing was the thing. So here we go. Let me show you some of that. So I don't know if you can hear the lyrics, but it's "No Crazy War." No crazy war. And the lyrics are peace, 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 peace. Look at this. This week, he was back on stage brushing off the latest U.S. escalation, a strike on a dock that the United States said was used for drug trafficking, by bouncing to an electronic beat on state television while his recorded voice repeated in English, "No crazy war." Oh my God, so that's Maduro's voice saying that. Oh my God. Mr. Maduro's regular public dancing and other displays of nonchalance in recent weeks helped persuade some on the Trump team that the Venezuelan president was mocking them and trying to call what he believed to be a bluff, according to two of the people who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to talk about the confidential discussions. I got another one for you. So here we go. This was another one of him dancing. I think it's to that same song. Not gonna lie, this beat sort of slaps. This beat sort of slaps. Venezuelans know their music. By the way, let's also just be direct here. Much better dancer than Trump. Much better dancer than Trump, without a doubt. All right, but it gets crazier. Ready? The Venezuelan situation goes well beyond oil and gas. Venezuela currently holds an estimated 4 billion tons of iron ore reserves. Estimates show Venezuela's has the 12th largest iron ore reserve in the world. 1 ton of iron ore is currently selling for $107, making these reserves worth about $428 billion. Iron ore producers often see high operating margins, sometimes exceeding 40 to 50%. This means extracting these reserves could generate over $200 billion in profit. That's nearly double NVIDIA's net income for the entire 2025 year. The amount of wealth beneath Venezuela is staggering. Guys, they have silver, they have iron ore, they have all sorts of precious metals, they have minerals, and it's worth a tremendous, tremendous amount of money. So it's about oil, it's about precious metals, it's about minerals, it's about these untapped resources that Western billionaires want to get their hands on. That's what this is about. But I still got one more for you, which perhaps is the most disturbing of all of the reasons. And this is the one that you're not going to hear many people bring up, but I'm going to bring it up here for you. So Jim Stewartson has written about this in the past. He says, just after the Trump regime invaded Venezuela and captured its president, Stephen Miller's wife, Katie, who works for Elon Musk, tweeted a threat to Greenland, which is the territory of Denmark, a NATO nation. A few hours later, Musk and Trump had dinner together for the first time since Musk said Trump was in the Epstein files. I believe the timing of this reunion is no coincidence. While there are numerous toxic winds flowing through this regime, the foreign policy all fits into a plan from the 1930s by Technocracy Inc., a fascist movement calling for the elimination of democracy in favor of rule by technocrats. The technocrats, by the way, being the AI billionaires, the AI robber barons. Technocracy's charter included the creation of a superstate called the Technate of America, spanning from Greenland to Venezuela. Technocracy was led in Canada by Joshua Haldeman, Elon Musk's grandfather, a vicious racist who moved his family to apartheid South Africa in 1950. Many of Musk's beliefs are simply passed down directly through his family, including, it appears, the idea of creating a technate. To Musk, Trump is just a malleable puppet in a much bigger game. Venezuela is only the beginning. And then so here, you have Jim Stewartson post the original map of technocracy, the technate states. And as you can see, it includes Venezuela, it includes all of Mexico, it includes Panama, it includes Greenland, it includes Cuba. So look, don't take my word for it. You can go and read about it. You can even just check out the Wikipedia page. Technocracy, or the technate states, right? What is the technocracy movement, or the technate states? And the idea was create a super state where the U.S. controls much, much more territory, end democracy, and let oligarch billionaires effectively have their own little corporate fiefdoms, where you're a slave peasant to them in these little corporate fiefdoms. You don't have the right to vote. You don't have rights, period. And we have people like Peter Thiel who are creating a mass surveillance database, who are spying on all of us. He wants to be one of the heads of the technate states, right? He wants to be basically a CEO overlord. This also ties in with Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin's idea, he calls it the Dark Enlightenment. He talks about RAGE, R-A-G-E, retire all government employees is what it stands for. He wants a dictator. He wants basically a fascist tech CEO to make all the decisions, to run everything, right? So this is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a post-democratic movement, a fascist authoritarian movement that also, by the way, they are married to ideas of humans becoming extinct. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Peter Thiel out of his own mouth. When he was asked if humanity should survive, he stumbled and he mumbled and he tripped over his words and he couldn't give a straight answer. Why? Because the real answer is he doesn't want humanity to survive. He wants us all to become transhumanist cyborgs. He wants us to mesh together with AI, with artificial intelligence. And he wants us to be basically more robot than human. So no freedom, no democracy, no liberty. We're no longer humans. You're a slave peasant to the billionaire class. And you don't live in a free country anymore, as they mass surveil you, every single thing you do, and keep a blackmail file on you. This is what's going on right in front of our eyes. And again, you might say this is crazy. You might say this is out there. But I was telling everybody he's going to do regime change in Venezuela. I've been covering this since he started bombing the first fucking fishing boat. I warned everybody, they're fucking serious about this. And now he's also out there threatening Colombia. Now he's also out there threatening Cuba. Now he's also out there threatening Mexico. Now he's threatening Greenland again. He feels emboldened by this. And by the way, the person that Trump picked to be the ambassador to Greenland, I believe it was a Peter Thiel acolyte, a Peter Thiel lackey, who tweeted at the time when he got the position, all's going according to plan. Because this is one of the places where Peter Thiel wanted to run his experiments. This is one of the places where Peter Thiel wanted complete dominance and control. Look at what these people are doing. They're going to destroy anything and everything. This is what the Venezuela regime change is really about. The rot goes so much deeper than anybody realizes. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.